Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Chapter 8 lecture material. We are covering markups and markdowns, break-evens, perishables, and what I want to say before you listen to this is I really hope you understand percents, because if you don't understand percents yet, this is going to be a little bit harder for you. So please be sure that you have watched that lecture, you have tried the homework, and I would have graded, by the time you're watching this, I would have graded your homework on percents. So go back, see what you did wrong, and then start on this so that you can make sure that you get it right. This is very easy material if you just follow the steps. If it is a little harder for you, again, I will be helping you if you call me, if you email me. Again, this is going to be due Saturday night by midnight. I hope that you would try watch this. This has been posted, today's Monday, the day I'm recording it. So maybe if you want to, if you plan ahead, I will be posting them ahead of time from now on. If you watch it, you will be ready for the week's assignments that we can, for the week's material as well, so that we can cover any questions that you might have on our live lecture on Thursday night, which will be at 8 p.m. Central Time. So let's begin. What are markups and markdowns? Well, I don't know if you remember, we talked about percent increase and decrease over at the end of chapter 6, which was over percents. This is exactly that. Well, it's similar to that, so if you understand that, this will be really easy. So we want to find out, this is how much it cost us, and this is how much we sell it for. How much profit are we making? What's the margin that we're making on it? And then we want to go to break even. That if this is how much it costs us to make a product, and this is how much we want to sell it for, how much do we need to sell it, so that not only do we cover our cost, but we also cover our electric bill, our secretary's wages, our rent for the building, or any other expenses that you might have that you might not necessarily associate as the cost of the product. That's what break-even analysis is. And then perishables. Perishables are, if we're working with something that, whether it's glassware, by the time that this is shipped, we're expecting about 5% of our products to be broken. So how can we price them so that even if they break, that we won't lose any money? Or if we're into fresh produce, etc., then if some of our products go bad, then we can still make up that money without losing money on what went bad. So that's kind of what we're doing now, is the time where we're actually getting into business math. Now you know your percents, decimals, fractions, and stuff. That was the foundation. Now we're applying those new concepts that we've learned to business situations and looking at it from a more business perspective. So I hope this is a little bit more fun than just plain old boring math. That I think math is fun. It's logical. It's straightforward. You just do it, and it's easy. There's no gray areas. It's either right or wrong. And I'm someone that likes that. But if you're not someone likes that, and you're more, maybe not creative, but you would call it the more verbal type, then that's okay. That's okay. I hope that this is practical enough for you, so that at least when you understand it, when you have calculations that you need to comment on, that you'll be able to understand what they mean. Okay? So, let us begin. Let us skip over the learning unit objectives, because you know what you're about to learn. Terminology, again, we need to know what is it, what are we talking about, so that when we do our math, when we do our calculations, everything makes more sense. So the cost, it is the price that the retailer pays to the manufacturer or supplier, or it could be the cost in making the thing. So say, for example, I am Walmart, and I am selling products from Nestle, okay? So whatever product whatever price Nestle sells it to Walmart, that's the cost for Walmart. And then Walmart sells it to me, the consumer. Okay? So the price that they sell it to me for is the next one, the selling price. That's the price that they charge to their customers. So the business, remember, every time we look at math and every time we look at anything in these business classes, we're looking at it from the business's perspective, not from the consumer's perspective. So the business, the price that the business pays is the cost, and the price that the business sells is the selling price. Okay? The markup or the margin or the gross profit, that is what we call the difference. Okay? So that little bit, if we just buy it and sell it for the same price, Whoop-de-doo. Like, why are we doing that? We're just wasting time. We spend $10, we get $10 back. We spend $2, we get $2 back. That's a waste of time. But if you have that profit, that's where the business is. That's where the profit is, right? Because think about it this way. I'm not going to go directly to Nestle and I'm not going to buy, chunks and chunks and bags of whatever product I want. I just want one from Walmart. So the price I pay to Walmart, that little bit of extra, is the profit that they earn for being able to get it in bulk and break it down for me, okay? And then you get your operating expenses and your overhead. All right, this is just the regular expenses that you just get because you're a business and you got to do what businesses do. Tax, all right? In sales companies, many of the times you pass on that tax as sales tax. What else? You have rent, wages, utilities, right? Whether or not we sell 5 million products or 5 products, business is going to be open throughout the day, so our electricity, our lights are going to be on for the whole day, right? So we're going to have to pay something no matter what. Same for rent. We are going to pay what we owe, whether we are doing really well or we're not doing really well. There are very few businesses that you go to them and say landlords that say, you know what, I was aiming to sell 200,000 units, but I only sold 50,000 units. Can I not pay my rent, or can I pay less of my rent? They would say, no, this is a business. You've got to pay what you've got to pay. So these are constants. They don't change. These are, another word for operating expenses and overheads is fixed costs. Okay, they don't change. And then, of course, your net profit and your net income, if you've taken accounting with me, you know this already, is the profit after all your expenses. So it's minus your cost, but it's also minus your operating and your overhead. So that just means this is your profit in total. This is the money that you have earned, okay? And you obviously, as a business owner, want your net income or your net profit to be the highest possible. Okay, so let's look at the selling formula. This is important because this is what everything else in this entire chapter is based on. Your selling price is equal to your cost plus your markup. Plain and simple. If you know 2 of these, you can figure out the 3rd one. Using Chapter 5's formula, replace, subtract, adding, that whole thing. If you know 2, you can figure out the unknown. So we want to know, when we read our problem, okay, which 2 do we have and which one do we still need? Okay, but this is the formula that we're going to be using, so keep this in front of you at all times, especially when you're doing your homework, etc. So assume Gap plans to sell hooded fleece jackets for $23 and it cost them $18. So we have our selling price and we have our cost. So the only one we don't have is the markup. So 23 is equal to 18 plus, this is the unknown, this is the one that we figured out, is equal to 5. Okay? How did we get that if you didn't know how to do this? So say, for example, we would have replaced that 5 with an M. This is going back to Chapter 5. 23 equals 18 plus M. Okay, so we would have said minus 18 on this side, minus 18 on that side, and then we would have gotten 5 equals M. So markup is equal to 5. And that's where we got that number from. Okay. We're going to have 2 different formats of doing these. We're going to have markups based on cost, and we're going to have markups based on selling price. If you think about what we covered in Chapter 6, where we had that circle with the portion, the base, and the rate, well, for markups based on cost, the base is cost, and the markups based on selling, the selling price is the base. So please keep in mind that there are 2 different formats, 2 different formulas, because it's going to throw you off if you don't pay attention to that. In your book, they're going to tell you. And if they don't say on selling price, if they don't mention whether it's on cost or selling price, just assume that it's going to be based on cost, okay? So what am I talking about? What does that mean? Okay? So our cost is 100%. That's our base. Our markup is the portion, all right? That's the one on top. So you have your portion, base, and rate, and our cost is the base, our markup is the portion, and our selling price is going to be the, the dollar markup is the, is the portion, and the percent markup is the rate. Okay, so your selling price is completely different altogether. So in markup, you can have, this is laid out a little differently. I'm sorry if this is a little confusing. Your selling price is not in your little circle. Okay, you have dollar markup and you have percent markup. Your dollar markup is the portion. Your percent markup is the rate. Okay, and then we'll figure out selling price. So forget about that for a second. Okay, so for example, Gap buys fleece jackets for $18. They plan to sell them for $23. What is the markup? What is the percent markup? Okay, number one, we need to figure out what do we have. Okay, so this is markup on cost. So what's the base? The cost, which is 18. Okay, now we need to figure out the markup because the dollar markup is the portion and the percent markup is the rate. Remember I told you selling price is not a part of this little circle at this time. Okay, so the dollar markup is your selling price minus your cost, which is $5. That's your portion. So your base is 18, your portion is 5. So 5 divided by 18, right? Portion divided by base, that is your rate. And what you get is 27.78, which is, you know, if you make it a decimal, it's 0.2778. Okay, so now how do you check this? So now, well, first of all, you know, we left selling price out for a while. Now we can add it back because your selling price is equal to your cost plus your markup, right? So now you want to check it. Selling price, which is 23, cost, which is 18, plus your markup, which is 5. Is 23 equal to 18 plus 5? Yes. But now let's check if our percent markup is right, okay? So our markup is 0.2778 of our cost. Remember, base is cost. So 23 is equal to 18 plus 27.78 of 18. That was a lot of repetition to get right to the same answer. There are many different ways of doing this, okay? So calculating the selling price when you know the cost and the percent markup on cost. Mel's Furniture bought a lamp for $100. Okay, we bought it, Mel's Furniture bought it, so that must be cost. Remember, cost for the business is what you buy it, and selling price is what you sell it for. So Mel's Furniture bought a lamp for $100. To make Mel's desired profit, he needs 65% on markup. What is his dollar markup? What is his selling price? Okay, go back to the circle. Remember, we have our rate and we have our base. Rate is percent markup. Portion is dollar markup, right? So to get the dollar markup, we're going to say rate times base, which is 0.65 times 100, which is 65. And then now we're going to go back to this calculation, this formula where selling price is equals to cost plus margin. So our selling price is 100 plus 65, which is 165. Okay, calculating cost when you know the selling price and the markup and the percent markup on cost. Okay, so now we know that the selling price is $50. Okay, but so now she knows if I need to sell it for 50 bucks. If I don't sell it for 50 bucks, if I sell it for more than 50 bucks, people aren't going to buy it. So I need to sell it at exactly 50 bucks. But she knows that, you know what, I can only sell it, even if I sell it at 50 bucks, I want a 40% markup on cost. Okay, so now she wants to figure out, what do I need to negotiate my cost? You know, when I'm buying it from my supplier, I need to make sure I don't buy it more than this price so that I can add my 40% so I can sell it at $50. Okay, so remember, the formula stays the same. Selling price is equal to cost plus markup. Now we know that our selling price is $50. We know that our cost, right, is equal to, we don't know what our cost is, but we know that our markup is 40% of whatever it is we don't know. Okay, so now we know that our selling price is 1 plus our 40%. It's our whole, it's our cost plus 40%. Okay, so C plus 0.40. So remember, if there's no number in front of the letter, we put a 1 in front of it, right? So it's 1C plus 0.4C, because it's 40% of cost, because we're still using the cost method, which is 1.4C. Okay, now we just go back to chapter 5 material where it's 50 is equal to 1.4C. We want the numbers on the one side, the letters on the other side. We just added the like terms, the C and the 0.4C. So now we have 50 is equal to 1.4C. There's no adding or subtracting anymore, so now we go straight to multiplying and dividing. 1.4C is 1.4 times C, so we divide it by 1.4, and then we divide the other side by 1.4. So now we know that cost is equal to 35.71. Okay? So now we know that we have to buy this tennis racket, we have to buy this business for $35.71 at the most, so that if we have a 40% markup, we can sell it for 50 bucks. Okay? So now let's check on our calculation. Our markup is equal to selling price minus cost. Okay? Our selling price is 50. Our cost is 35.71, and so now our dollar markup is 14.29. Okay? So what does the tennis racket cost? That was the first question. It costs 35.71. Second question, what is the dollar markup? It is $14.29. Okay. So, percent markup on selling price. Now we're talking about markups based on selling price. So now the base is 100%. Dollar markup is portion, and percent markup is the rate. Okay? So now, this is the same thing that we have. So now our cost plus our markup has to equal 100%, because our selling price is the base, and the base is always 100%. Okay? So now we need to figure out our cost and our markup based on that. So calculating your dollar markup and your percent markup on your selling price. Okay, so let's talk about it now. Now we're using the same example, but instead of cost-based, it's selling price-based. The cost to Gap for a hooded fleece jacket is $18. Hasn't changed. The store then plans to sell them for $23. What is Gap's dollar markup? What is the percent markup on selling price? Okay, so our dollar markup is still $5, right? 18, 23, the difference is 5. But now we want to make it the dollar. Now we want to base it on the selling price. So our portion is 5, our base is 23, and so our rate is 21.74. That is 21.74%. Okay? So our selling price is equal to our dollar markup divided by our percent markup on selling price. Okay, this is just a way to check. So if you don't know, if you have your dollar markup value and you have your percent markup value, this is how you calculate what your selling price is. 5 divided by 0.2174. Why is it 0.2174? Because anytime we work with a percent in a calculation, we have to convert it to a decimal form. So 5 divided by 0.2174 is 23. Selling price is 23. That is the number we were given. Yes, it's right. Okay, here's another way to check. Selling price is equal to cost plus markup. This is never going to change. Your selling price is always equal to cost plus markup. We know that our selling price is 23. We know that our cost is 18. And we know that our markup is 21.74% of our selling price. So it's 0.2174. Remember, in a calculation, convert percent to decimal, which is 0.2174 times, what are we based on? Are we based on selling price or cost? We're based on selling price. So it's times 23. So 0.2174 times 23 is equal to 5. So 23 is equal to 18 plus 5. It does equal out, so our answer is correct. Okay, calculating the selling price when you know the cost and the percent markup on selling price. Okay, Mel's Furniture bought a lamp for $100. To make Mel's desired profit, he needs 65% markup on selling price. What is Mel's selling price and the dollar markup? Okay, so selling price is equal to $100 plus 65% of the selling price. Okay, so now what we want to do, we have our formula, right? We have our unknown. We don't know what the selling price is, but we know that our cost is 100, and we know that our markup is 65% of our selling price. In the cost-based method, it was really easy because it was 65% of the 100, and you can just calculate that. But now, it's not based on cost, it's based on selling price. So we have to multiply it by this unknown that we have. So what do? Selling price is equal to, S is equal to 100 plus 0.65S. Okay? Number one, combine like terms. We want to make sure all the S's are together. Okay? So we have plus 0.65S on this side, so we want to do the opposite process rule, which is if it is plus 0.65S, we have to say minus 0.65S on this side, so that we can say minus 0.65S on this side. Remember, if there's no number in front of the letter, it is always a 1. So 1S minus 0.65S is 0.35S. Okay? So 0.35S is equal to 100. How do we get rid of, we want the letters on the one side and the numbers on the other side? Well, the letter is the S, so we want that, and we want to get rid of that 0.35. So it's 0.35 times S, so to get rid of it, we have to divide. Remember, the opposite of multiply is divide. Divide 0.35 on this side, divide 0.3 on this side, and we get S is equal to 285.71. What does this mean? These are a lot of numbers, but remember, you have to make sure that it makes sense. So we've taught you that always go back to make sure your answer makes sense in the problem. This means if we buy it at $100 and we want to sell it at a 60% markup on selling price, the selling price is 285.71. That's what he needs to sell it for to get a 65% markup on selling price at a cost of 100. Okay? But now the second question, what is the markup? Okay, so your markup is equal to your selling price minus your cost. Your selling price is 285.75 minus 100, which is your cost, and so your dollar markup is 185.71. Another way of getting this is you have your portion, which is your dollar markup, which is, you have your rate, which is 0.65, and you have your base because it's the selling price, so the selling price is the base. So we have our base, which is 285.71, and we have our rate, which is 0.65. So to get our portion, we just say 285.71 times 0.65. And that will give you the same thing. So if you like that circle and you're comfortable with just staying with that technique, go with it, okay? Remember, your portion is your dollar markup and your percent is your your rate is your percent markup, okay? So calculating cost when you know the selling price and the percent markup on the selling price, okay? This one's really easy. Jill Sport, owner of Sports Incorporated, sells tennis rackets for $50. To make her desired profit, she needs a 40% markup on selling price. What is her dollar markup? What do they cost her? So $50 is equal to cost plus 40% of that $50. So what is 40% of that 50? You just multiply it out. So $50 is equal to cost plus $20. So remember, we want the numbers on the one side, we want the letters on the other side. So because it's plus 20, we want to say minus 20 on this side, minus 20 on that side. So we have 50 minus 20, which is equal to 30. 30 is equal to our cost. So what is the dollar markup? 20. What do the tennis rackets cost her? 30. Okay. So conversion. Right? There's only like 1 or 2 questions on this, but this is the slide. This is where you need to go because this is really, really easy. So if you have a markup on cost and you want to know, if you want to have percent based on cost and you want to know, okay, what would that be if it was percent based on selling price? This is how you calculate it, and vice versa. If you want to know, okay, this is the percent markup on cost, how do I convert that same dollar amount to percent markup on selling price. Okay, so if you noticed, we used the same examples, but we got different percent values, because if it was based on cost, it was a different value, and if it was based on selling price, it was a different value. What if we wanted to convert and see, how it would look on the other way? Easy. So what is the percent markup on cost in a decimal fraction? Remember, anytime we use calculations with a percent, we have to convert the percent to the decimal point, right? So percent markup on cost divided by 1 plus percent markup on cost. All right, real easy. So if the percent markup on cost is 0.2778, we just say 0.2778 divided by 1 plus 0.2778, which is equal to 0.2778 divided by 1.2778, and you would get 21.74% markup on selling price. So we had cost, it was 27.78 in our cost, and it's 21.78 on selling price. Okay? But here's if you have selling price, how do you convert that to cost? So you have your percent markup divided by 1 minus percent markup on selling price. So our selling price was 21.74. We just calculated that. Now let's see if we can convert that to the 0.2778 or 27.78%. Again, convert it to your decimals. So it's 0.2178 divided by 1 minus 0.274, which is equal to 27.78. And if you look back on this side, you'll see that it is equal. Okay, so now we're going to markdown. Okay, what is a markdown? We want to know what was, it used to be this price, now it's this price, how much did we go down? All right, this is really easy. This is what we talked about also in percent decrease at the end of chapter 6. Again, there's the typo. Dollar markup is equal to original selling price minus new selling price. That is supposed to say dollar marked down. Okay? So example, Sears marked down an $18 tool set to $10.80. What is the dollar markdown and what is the markdown percent? Okay? So the dollar markdown, easy. Original selling price minus new selling price, the old minus the new, 18 minus 10.8, which is $7.20. Okay, that is your dollar markdown. But now we want to know what is the markdown percent. Okay, same thing that we did in percent at the end of chapter 6. We said your difference divided by your old or your original is your percent markdown. So 7.2 is your difference divided by your old, which was the 18, which is equal to 40%. All right, you would get 0.4 in the calculations. You would need to round that to 40%. Now we're going to go to the perishables that I talked about. Okay, so Alvin's vegetable stands grew 300 pounds of tomatoes. 300 pounds that he wants to sell. But he knows that 5% of the tomatoes are going to become spoiled and they're not going to be saleable. So the tomatoes cost Alvin 14 cents per pound and he wants a 60% markup. What is the price per pound that he should charge? Our total cost is 300 pounds times 14 cents a pound that they gave us, so our total cost is $42. Okay? We know our total sales is going to be, remember, 60% markup on cost. What's the base? Cost, right? And the 60%, that's the rate. We have base, we have rate. What is the dollar portion? Base times rate is, they figure it out, and we get the total selling price. It was the original price was 25.2. The total markup, the dollar markup is 25.2. So 42 is our cost. Our dollar markup is 25.2. They don't write that. But our total selling price, our total sales in total, is going to be our total cost plus our total markup, which is 67.2. But here's the thing. Okay, if 5% spoil, they're not going to get that 67.2. So we need to price the remainder so that if we don't sell that 5%, that 95% we can still earn 67.2. Does that make sense? All right. So he expects 5% to go bad, and we're not going to sell it. So he wants the same $67 from 95% of the tomatoes because he knows he won't be able to sell 100% of the tomatoes. So what do? Okay, 5% of 300 is 15 pounds. So he knows he's not going to be able to sell 300 pounds, he's going to sell 285 pounds. So now he has his total selling price, which is 67.2, divided by 285, and so he gets price per pound. Okay, so now he knows that in order to get his markup of 60%, he needs to sell each pound for 24 cents per pound, and the cost was 14 cents per pound. Okay, so what is a contribution margin? Really easy. Okay, contribution margin is your selling price minus your variable cost. Okay, now your variable cost was the same thing that we talked about, your cost of your product. Now the reason it's variable is because if you buy 500 tomatoes at 14 cents a pound, or if you buy 200, right, it's going to be different. Your cost is going to be different. It's going to vary. It's going to differ according to the number of pounds that you have. Okay? And so your fixed costs, if you remember at the beginning of the lecture, we talked about how your fixed costs are your rent. You're going to pay rent no matter what, no matter how many you sell, no matter how many you don't sell. You're going to pay your office assistant's salary whether you sell 500 or you sell 2, whatever it is, right? So your variable cost is your actual product cost because it varies according to how many you buy or sell. But your fixed cost is different. Okay, those are your operating costs. So say, for example, assume Jones's company produces pens that have a selling price of $2 and a variable cost of 80 cents. Calculate the contribution margin. In this sense, the contribution margin is your profit on each individual sale. Your gross margin is your contribution margin. Okay? But now we want to know break even. The reason we calculate that is because that helps us calculate the break even point. So our fixed costs, those are our operating costs, our operating expenses, rent and all those business expenses that are not related to the actual product. So again, Jones company produces pens. The company has a fixed cost of $60,000. Each pen sells for $2 with a variable cost of 80 cents per pen. Now your break-even point, what is that? That just means how many pens do I have to sell to break even, to cover all my costs, not only to cover my cost of the product, but also to cover my fixed cost. So it's your fixed cost divided by your contribution margin. Remember, your contribution margin is selling price minus variable cost. So your break-even point is $60,000 divided by $2 minus 80 cents. So your contribution margin is $1.20. So your break-even point is $60,000 divided by 1.2. Okay? And that just shows that in order to cover your fixed costs and to cover your variable costs, you need to sell 50,000 units. Now this means is that if you sell 49,000, you're not going to cover costs. You're going to make a loss. If you sell 50,000, you covered your cost, but you didn't make any profit. Okay? And then if you sell, say, 51,000, okay, well then you made a profit, all right, because you sold more than your break-even. So your break-even is how much do I have to sell minimum so that I don't lose money, so that I cover all my costs, all right? Very, very practical because you need to know this. You can't just say, I had one student, you know, she was in fashion design and they told her she had to come up with her financial plan for her business, and she wanted to open this boutique, and she wanted to sell her, you know, skirts that she would make herself. She wanted to sell those for $20. So we walked her through her prices, and we found out that it would take 8 hours to actually make the skirt, and it would cost this much for the material, it would cost this much for all the other supplies and stuff that she needed. And we found out that she was making about 8 cents per hour, and we saw that, you know what, we asked her, is this something that you want to do? And she says, well, no, of course not, because why would I do that when I could go get a, you know, minimum wage job and earn over 100 times that? Make sense? So this is important in pricing your products so that you can be sure that you know that you're going to be making money, that you don't work really hard and at the end of the month you say, okay, I still don't have money, I still don't have anything that I can spend on my personal expenses. All right? So let us do some practice. The last few are just some practice. Find the dollar markup and selling price for the following problems. Okay? Round the answers to the nearest cent. So these are based on cost because they haven't told you otherwise. Okay? Only when they tell you that it's selling price then you do it. Otherwise you just assume that it's based on cost. So we know that our item cost $500. We know that the percent markup is 20%. Remember, we have our base and we have our rate. How do we get our dollar markup, which is our portion? 20% times 500, which is $100. So our dollar markup is 100. And then remember, our formula for our selling price is equal to cost plus markup. So 500 plus 100, which is 600. So this just means we need to make sure that our we sell the BlackBerry iPad, which does not make sense. It's either a BlackBerry tablet or an Apple iPad for $600 if we want to make a 20% markup. So now you check it, okay? So it's your cost times 1 plus percent markup. Percent markup was 0.2, right? Because we're converting it to a decimal, because every time we use percent in calculations, we have to convert to decimal. So 1.2 and 500 times 1.2 is 600. We've checked it. We are right. We are good to go. All right, problem 8.3. Solve for cost. Okay? The selling price is $6,000. Percent markup on cost is 40%. So what is our cost? Okay, let's talk about percents first. Our cost we know is 100% because it's percent markup based on cost. So our cost is 40%. I'm sorry, our cost is 100%. Our markup is 40%. So our selling price has to be 140%. 140% in decimals is 1.4. Here's another way of doing it. Okay, we have C plus 0.4 of C, right? So it's anytime we have just a letter, we have to put a 1 in front of it, okay? So we put the 1 and we say plus, remember, your percent markup based on cost, so it's 0.4 times C, so we say 0.4 C. And so 1 C plus 0.4 C is 1.4 C. So 600,000 is equal to 1.4 C. So now we want the numbers on the one side and the letters on the other side. How do we do that? Well, we've already combined like terms. There's no more adding and subtracting. Now we just have to do multiplying and dividing. 1.4C is 1.4 times C. So we divide it by 1.4 on this side, divided by 1.4 on this side, and we know our cost is equal to $4,285.71. So it cost us $4,285. We added 40% to that, and then we sold it for $6,000. Okay, one more. Let's say our cost is $15.10. Our selling price is $22. Okay, what is our dollar markup? Easy. Selling price minus cost, which is equal to $6.90. Okay, now what's our percent markup on cost? Now, markup on cost. So what's our base? Our cost. What is our rate? What is our portion? $6.90. And now we're trying to calculate rate. So portion divided by base, which is equal to $6.90 divided by $15.10, which is equal to 0.4570, which is the decimal, and then you convert that to percent by moving the decimal 2 places to the left, because that's how you get from decimal to percent. You go 2 places to the, you go 2 places to the right. That was a correction. And so it is 45.7% markup on cost. All right, and this is the last one. Assume markups are based on selling price. So our base is selling price. Find the dollar markup and the cost and round to the nearest cent. All right. So our selling price is 1,000, and which is our base, and our percent markup is 45. Right. So we have our base and we have our rate. 45% is 0.45. So our base times our rate, which is 450, right? Because 0.45 times 1,000 is 450, and that is now our portion. Okay, we are done with the circle. So now we know that our selling price is 1,000, and we know our markup is 450. So if you have your selling price and you have your markup, you just say selling price minus markup is equal to cost, and that is 550. Okay, that was one way of doing it. But here, let's look at their algebraic way of doing it. So we know that 1,000 is equal to cost plus 45 of 1,000. All right? So it's 1,000 equals C plus 450. Minus 450 on this side, minus 450 on this side. We're left with 550, and 550 is equal to C, which is our cost. So find the dollar markup, 450. Find the cost, 550. All right? So that is it for Chapter 8. Again, this is due by Saturday at midnight. All late homework assignments will be deducted 10% for each day they're late. I keep saying this is the easiest part of your grade. Do all of these on time to really boost your grade so that you can get the most out of this class. If you need some help, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to help you. Hope you have fun with this assignment. Again, if you really need some help in writing these summaries because you're like, it just takes too long, this is all math-based, where am I going to get 250 words? Just, go over the problems with me, go over the steps with me, and tell me as if you were explaining to someone who never understood this before. How would you explain it to them? You will come up with 200 to 250 words easy. All right? Other than that, that is it. Thank you very much, and have a great day.